Hey, everyone, and welcome to High Energy Podcast. My name is Esteban. I'm so happy you're here. We have such a good conversation today. I feel like we're going to talk about public transportation, systems, literature. I want to ask you about books. You brought books, which is really exciting. It's always exciting when a guest shows up and they go, I got books with me. You just joined Jacobs, and we're going to talk about this. Jacobs, as vice president, account manager, and resilience lead. We've got someone who has decades and decades of experience working in something that I'm really interested in, systemic change, what it looks like at a government level, at a big picture level, and how everyday people like me, maybe the people listening, can help drive some of those shifts. So please welcome our guest for this episode. I'm so grateful you are here. Please make some noise for Heather Repenning. Woo! Heather! People are probably yelling that.
Somewhere.
Yes. Heather Repenning! Repenning in the house! Okay, one of the things that I love about climate, when people are like, hey, Esteban, why are you into climate? When strangers just come up to me and they go, why are you into climate? I think climate just touches everything, and every job can be a climate job. Every hobby can be thought through the lens of climate. And one of the things that I found immediately interesting about you is that you studied comparative literature. That's what you studied. And you ended up in this career that we're going to talk about in climate. But I'm curious, number one, what drew you to comparative literature and how you see what you studied to the work that you're doing now. Is there a connection, or are they just you're just following your passion and words are fun?
Thank you. I think there's definitely a connection. I mean, I think people that are attracted to literary studies tend to be interested in finding meaning. And so for me, when I came out to Southern California to pursue my graduate degree, I was very fascinated by LA. And I kind of embarked on a journey to find meaning and to make sense of this place, which can be so overwhelming, and really kind of force some existential questions about how and why and how did this happen, this form that we have here. And so I've actually answered a lot of those questions. I've really learned how things work, how certain things get built, how certain systems have become what they are, and more importantly, how we can change them. The other piece that I think I bring from my work in literary studies to my career is an understanding of stories and narrative. And so I work a lot with engineers and people that are social scientists, sometimes actual scientists. And so I enjoy being able to translate sometimes the work that we're doing together into narratives that are more easily accessed by other kinds of people in other parts of our community. So being able to tell the story of the work that we're doing and why it matters is something that I think comes from my humanities background.
I'm so curious. Okay, so you wanted to understand LA. What was if someone is trying to understand LA, what are some of the things that they're reading or learning into? What are some of the resources? There's obviously some really big books about LA and movies about LA, even Chinatown, under the water in LA. But what were the tools you used to help you understand LA? Because our listeners and viewers are mostly Southern California based.
Right. Well, there was a time when I was still in grad school, and I was also starting my work with the city. And I was actually reading kind of the LA literary canon. I mean, there's an incredible body of work that is very specific to this place. And a lot of it is noir, detective fiction, Day of the Locust, a lot of Walter Mosley, James Elroy, that, I've read it all.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that at some point, I'd love to teach a class specifically about, the LA literature and how it kind of matches up with our actual history. But I think just talking to people, being in our communities, understanding where we've come from, who are the people that have taken us here, who do we look to for the future? That is in the people in our communities more so than I think in any book.
Yeah. You mentioned teaching a class. I know you teach at this public policy on climate class.
Yeah, I've been teaching at USC in the Price School of Public Policy, a course on sustainable communities.
We looked up the syllabus, and it's so cool that I think we're going to link it in the show
Great.
because there's so many amazing resources. Speaking of like tools to help understand something. It's like there's so many documentaries and books and YouTube videos and interviews and that I found so interesting. Like where that class, I know being in the class is a different experience, but like big picture, what does that class talk about? Because I think to me, going climate public policy, I'm like, oh, cool. And then I'm like, what are the specifics of that? Like, I don't know too much of what that means. That could be just me, but I'm curious. Can you like speak to that class a little bit more?
I really wanted to teach the kind of the basic building blocks of our communities. And I think those of us in kind of the climate space, like we do a pretty bad job at explaining what's actually happening. Why is carbon bad? Like why are carbon emissions a problem? Why is combustion a problem? Like why are we concerned with specific things? And I think that, to me, helping young people understand like a lot of the basics of what makes up, kind of sustainability, climate action, climate response, like they are found in kind of the basics of our lives. So we start with water. We talk about where does our water come from? Clean water. How can we reuse our water? Clean air. History of air pollution in LA is fascinating. If you've ever like going back and watching some of the old clips, I mean, we had terrible air pollution. We still do, by the way. This is the most polluted county in the country. But back in the day, in like the 60s and 70s, it was, it was making people sick. So we've done a lot of work to actually make a lot of improvements, which I like to talk about because it those kinds of stories where we have turned something around in such a big way, they are where I get hope from.
Yeah, they show us something can happen. What are some of, even in air pollution? I know it surely there's a very long answer, but what would be like the headlines of how did air pollution get better from the 60s and 70s to where we are now?
I mean, a lot of it is technology. A lot of it is improved vehicle technology. For example, catalytic converters in cars, like improving reducing vehicle exhaust, improving quality of gasoline, smog checks, putting those like rubber thingies on the gas pump when we're pumping gas. We've done so much work over decades because a lot of it comes from transportation.
Yeah,
which I'm sure we'll talk about. But so I try in this course to teach the building blocks. What are we eating? What are we building? Where are we building it? How are we getting around? These are all things. A lot of answers can be found in understanding these basics of our lives. I think that as much as we can help people understand what it is that's happening and what the work is to try to address it and fight it and prepare, that's what we can do. That's the work ahead of us.
We've touched on this, but now we're getting into it, is public transportation. You worked for the city of LA and Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. So you've worked a lot with like these big public projects, I suppose. First off, before we even can you tell us about your work in there?
Sure.
And then we can start pulling apart people who aren't in that world. What are ways for us to understand it? What are ways for us to like support these good initiatives?
I spent about 2.5 decades in government and public service and in a variety of roles and working for, political offices. And I was appointed to the Board of Public Works, which oversees engineering, sanitation, street lighting, street services for the city of LA. I was also on the board of the Metropolitan Water District, which imports water from Northern California, from the Colorado River, and basically sells water to 26 agencies from Ventura to the border. So big, Western water supply policy issues. And then I also spent, more recently, I was the head of sustainability at LA Metro, which is the, transportation authority for Los Angeles County. And so, I've worked in public works, water, transportation, kind of cities, really with a focus on kind of sustainability and climate policy.
There's a quote you said, increasing access to public transportation is a climate strategy.
Yes.
Can you talk about what's happening in LA in terms of public transportation and the way that is connected to here's the climate strategy?
Sure. Well, first of all, about somewhere between 40 and 50% of our climate emissions in LA County come from the transportation sector. And actually a higher percentage of our particulate matter, the stuff that causes air pollution, the stuff that really does damage to people's health and especially in frontline communities, is coming from transportation. So it is in transportation that we can make the cuts that we need to both improve public health, but also to reduce climate emissions. And so, what does that look like? People love to talk about electrification and electric vehicles, and that's one good way, but that's not the end all and be all. Like for us, especially in a dense city like Los Angeles, people, making a choice to drive less, to drive by themselves less, is another really great way to reduce emissions. And luckily, people have been voting. Voters of Los Angeles have voted multiple times to create a sales tax to fund and expand our public transportation here in LA. So LA Metro is leading a massive kind of expansion of our public transportation system and improve the service that we already have. So you'll see subways opening up. They just opened up, the new airport station.
It's so beautiful.
I mean, some of these stations are beautiful and transformative. If you're actually using public transit, you are fighting climate change. You are helping improve public health. I don't want to say everyone's going to give up their car and only use public transit. That's not it. It's more about finding those opportunities to reduce trips, to reduce people driving by themselves, to use public transit, to walk, to carpool, to bike, all of these ways, right? That is what a lot of my work at Metro was focused on. And I think it's really an important way to help out the environment and the community here in LA. There's
almost such a joke or stereotype about LA being this car city. Like, what are those obstacles that you actually doing the work, right? Outside of like memes poking fun at LA highways. Like, what are the things that you're seeing are obstacles to some of that shift? And how can we better understand those? Like almost like myth busting of like people do ride the metro in LA.
We are really attached to our cars. We've designed it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So we've designed and we've sort of said, this is how we're doing things and this is how we're getting around. And we still say that. And we say that in how things are priced. And, a lot of really smart policy people have talked about the price of parking. As an example, if the price of parking is low and you have a lot of parking, you're saying, hey, drive your car here, right? How we're using our road space, right? Roads and streets, they are part of our community. They're part of our shared space. So how we choose to use that space, is it for cars only, or are we creating opportunities for other modes in that space? I mean, obviously we want to make sure that our public transit system is efficient, is picking people up on time, is clean, is safe for women traveling alone. And I mean, these are all things that we need to work on. And luckily, I think there are some really smart people working on them. But part of it is human behavioral change in the context of, a built system and a built environment.
I mean, it's interesting to think of it's, I mean, kind of what you were saying earlier, of like there's engineers and then you tell them about stories, is interesting to be like, well, we can build like a thing you get on that takes you to your destination, but we have to, there's like mindset shifts or some of those behavioral shifts, right? There's like a behavioral component and like a routine component. And then there's like the city has built literal infrastructure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the private sector, like there's a profit motive, and the private sector is so good at understanding like what drives people to make certain choices, right? And marketing and trying to change that. And I think like we need to do better about that in government.
Private sector, you say. They call this a good transition in the podcast world. You're now switching to the private sector. You just joined Jacobs. And it feels like, from what you've posted, it's totally aligned with the work that you're doing, right? It's like continuing the work that you're doing, but now it's in the private sector. Can you talk about Jacobs and what compelled that move, and how this private sector is driving this force for good, working with the public sector. Like, how does all of that intersect?
I've been really blessed to be able to work in public service roles for a long time. And, transitioning to Jacobs feels like a really natural transition because they are a private company. They're a global engineering firm, and they essentially support government and public agencies as well as private companies in doing a lot of the things that government does. So we are a partner to the public sector, and we can bring expertise. We can bring different kinds of people and different kinds of solutions that they might not have in-house. Jacobs is a global engineering company. They have about 45,000 employees, 40 offices around the world. And essentially, we are a partner to government and other organizations that want to do things. Everything from building infrastructure to repairing to providing expertise. There are engineers and planners and experts of all kinds throughout the company. And so part of my work for Jacobs is going to be finding the right people in our own network, and then sometimes outside as well, and putting groups of people together that can come in and support cities and agencies and organizations that are looking to do something, to improve something, to build something.
That's so fun. So this is like a city wants to get something done. And this would be, they're like, hey, help us out here a little bit. And Jacobs is like, we got it. Here's some engineers. Here's some experts. Let's do this together.
Yeah, like cities often have their own in-house staff, and they have some engineers and they have some designers. But usually if they're going to build something big or they're going to do anything that's really significant, they're going to need additional help. And so they're going to need, a partner to come in and support them in that work. And so at Jacobs, we're able to offer experts from a variety of fields to come in and provide the support that leaders are looking for. We're going to be part of that work. It's a company that's really committed to sustainability, to connectivity to people and communities. So it feels like the same kind of work I've been doing, just in a different role. But I am really excited to be part of a global, company, because I've worked in LA and like really local government. So I'm excited about the global aspect of my new role.
Yeah. Are there cities around the world that you admire that you're like, they are crushing it from a climate standpoint?
I think it's always so easy to refer to, European cities or whatever. But I mean, Paris has done like a lot of work. I think they did in advance of the Olympics and in response to some really bad air pollution problems and things that they were having. The big thing that's happened there is the use of biking.
Yeah.
So, the city made a, very intentional decision to increase the use of cycling as a mode. And to reduce the number of vehicles circulating inside the city perimeter. Even during the pandemic, they gave people, 50 euros or whatever it was to repair old bikes that they might have at the house. They've built, bike lanes throughout the city, and then a number of roads have been closed off to vehicles, including around the Seine. So I see that as a city that is they're doing things that I would like to see us do here.
Yeah.
Doing it well. When you look at other kinds of specifically around transportation, like the city of Bogota has, really great bus programs that I think we look to as well.
Yeah. I'm from Bogota.
You are? Uh-huh. So you know about
the Transmilenio.
Yes.
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's like it feels like a subway, but they were able to build it in 5 months because it just is like a totally protected bus lane.
And they come quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like what's the headway?
Every few minutes. It truly feels like being like in New York subway where, there's one every, like during peak hours or whatever, there's one every like 2-3 minutes, but it just is buses. And it's its own bus terminal in the middle of highways. So you like go there and then you wait and it just is like in its own lane, bored, and you keep going and it like fills up again. Yeah.
So do you think that would work in LA?
Totally. I do think that. Yeah. I also think biking would work. Like we have perfect, look at this. It's almost too perfect. It's almost too sunny on us right now, you know?
It is sunny.
Yeah. I think I'm sure you know all the statistics, but it's like most trips in LA are less than 3 miles or whatever, you know, like a bunch of it is pretty small because you're going to the grocery store near your house. You're going to whatever that looks like if you don't have a commute. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my gosh, bikes would be so great. And the biggest barrier to me, someone who cares about this as a bike, likes biking, is like sometimes it just is an unprotected lane and it feels unsafe, which I know the city's working on. But I live on the west side, and like Venice Boulevard has protected bike lanes. We'll bike there all the time. But if I have to go beyond like a different route or beyond that, like what? So it's Venice this way. We're getting real in the weeds. But then there's Washington. Washington's not protected. And if I like have to go there, then it just is too scary.
Well, choices are made in the weeds, right? Like this is where the magic happens. Like this is where we have the chance to, you know, to get one person who wouldn't ride a bike to now ride a bike.
Yeah.
Right. And so you or me, right? Yeah. Like I wouldn't ride and I'm not going to, you know what I mean? But like we have ciclovia once a month or I don't know, once a quarter or whatever. Whenever it happens, it's so popular and people love it and they come out with their families.
Ciclovia is this event, just if someone's listening, because I feel like they would dig it if they don't know.
Please tell.
Well, you're like the person.
No, but
like,
you.
Okay, I'll tell, but then give me notes.
Okay.
After I say it.
Okay.
It's this event where they shut down a portion, a few streets, a few blocks, and then it's open for biking or for walking, for mobility of any kind. Right? There's people but it's usually biking, and then they go, and it's inspired by Colombia. Do you know that? It's like on their website, they're like, this is inspired by what Bogota was doing in Colombia. Shout out Colombia. Shout out Colombians. Shout out mom and dad. I feel like now turned into this like almost like, it feels like almost like a street festival.
Yeah, it's an open street event, and I think it's a few miles, and each event showcases a different part of the city, and it's been very, very popular. So there is demand there. There are a lot of people that aren't necessarily out on their bikes going to work every day, but when you actually close the street and make it really safe, they will come out and ride a bike.
I love that. A little bit ago, you mentioned the Olympics. Is it okay if we chat about the Olympics for a little?
Yes.
Because in the context that you brought it up in, which is actually very interesting, is hey, some of these changes that Paris did were inspired by the Olympics. Olympics was this catalyst for change. We in Los Angeles are lucky enough to have the Olympics in 2028, and there's already some stuff moving and grooving, right? But I wonder like how can the Olympics in LA be a catalyst for climate action in the same way that it has elsewhere?
One of the main reasons LA won the bid for the 28 Olympics is because we actually already have a lot of the facilities here. We're not tearing things down and we're not building new things. We're not, building on land that hasn't been used. So that is actually very sustainable just from the get-go. I think the second thing that will happen is people will be using public transit to access venues. So there are going to be a lot of buses, I think, between the subway and, the increased number of buses running through our city. Like we're going to be using public transit to get to places during the 2028 games, which is great for the reasons we were talking about earlier. And then I think there will be other things that happen. I mean, chance for people to come together is always a good thing. And I think, we were talking to a group this morning out of USC called Shade LA. They're looking to be kind of the tree planting, arm for the 28 games.
That's so cool.
And the last two Olympics that we've hosted, we've had a big tree planting effort. And so they're looking to renew that. But the overall focus is not just on trees, but it's on shade. So shade provided by trees, but also shade provided by other kinds of structures. So I think there will be opportunities for, a lot of the kinds of improvements that do move our city forward.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Heather, now's this fun part.
Okay.
Every episode we have people submit some questions, and I got some questions for you.
Okay.
Today, this one gave you a heads up that it's coming because you came ready to rock and prepared. This is from Matilda. She's in Compton. Is there a book of fiction? They know you're a literature nerd.
Connoisseur
Yeah.
or something?
Matilda from Compton knows you're a connoisseur of literature. Okay. And they came and they wanted to ask, is there a book of fiction that you think really captures the climate crisis? But you also just brought books. So I would love to know the books that you brought. I think myself and Matilda would love to know, what are the books that you brought and how do they relate to the climate crisis?
As a literature enthusiast, there are a couple of things. Number one, I actually would recommend, this is a novel called The Disaster Tourist. It's by a Korean writer called Yun Ko-yun. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's about basically last chance tourism, and it's kind of dark, but I would recommend this. And actually, I kind of want to give this to you, or if you want to give it to Matilda, I love to give books away.
Yeah.
So I'm passing this on, and it matches the chair somewhat, which I think is great.
Wow, this is a gripping literary thriller about disaster, adventure, and crisis of conscience. This is so great.
So I'm also an aficionado of nonfiction. Mike Davis, may he rest in peace. He wrote a few books that were very pivotal about Los Angeles, most notably City of Quartz, Ecology of Fear, Los Angeles and the Imagination of Disaster. Early, very prescient work on kind of climate disasters and kind of the role of disasters and kind of the LA imagination. So I would recommend this one as well.
Yeah. And Mike Davis, I've only read City of Quartz, but it was, beautiful. That's so great. Thanks. And thank you for this. I'll see if we can get a hold of Matilda. If not,
okay,
I'll read it. And then I'll while I'm reading it, be like, this is for you, Matilda. Thank you for sharing. And then here's another one. This is such a fun question. This is from Vanna in San Marino. If you could fast track one trend or policy related to sustainability, what would that be and why?
Okay, well, I think food policy is really an undervalued and underdiscussed part of climate work. I mean, I think where we're growing food, what we're growing, how we're preserving it, how we're shipping it, how we're preparing it, and all those sorts of things, that is really, really essential. There are major climate ramifications to what we eat.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've read about, beef and the water cost of a hamburger, but also the climate cost of dairy farming, right? And the use of, large pieces of land to grow crops that are not particularly sustainable, that are, water thirsty. We grow all kinds of things in parts of California that don't have their own water. The groundwater would not be enough, right? And so we're importing water to grow things that are very thirsty, like tree nuts, right? And so I actually think that food policy, the other end of it is what we waste a lot of food. So we have a lot of people that are food insecure in the US, and at the same time, we're wasting a lot of perfectly edible food that gets thrown out. How can we make sure that food that is edible is getting to people that need it? And how do we make sure that organic waste, that part of what gets thrown typically in the black bin actually ends up in the compost bin, or ends up in an anaerobic digester to create, renewable energy. So just all of food, I think, is a really interesting area. I think that there are some examples of really good programs that are able to go and recover food that's edible from places that may otherwise throw it out and get it to food pantries and people in need. So increasing that, I think, is just cheap, important, good. good for the environment, good for the community. There are other programs around community composting. There's a group called Compost LA that sets up stands at some farmers markets where people who don't live in an apartment and they can't do backyard composting, right? Or they don't have enough food scraps to warrant having their own compost pile. They can take it to their farmers market and drop it off there, and it ends up, being used for urban farming. Those programs are great. I think having, like some more thoughts about what we're growing and where, I think that those conversations are really important, but those are tough as well. Yeah.
I mean, I think we just need to have tough conversations. That's the only way out of this. Way out of a tough situation with tough conversations.
I think it's time for you to run for office.
And that is why I'm now announcing to be the mayor of Bogota. That's so great. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like it's been such a lovely chat. Like I feel like everyone in LA thinks about, I wish the metro, like I should take the metro more or whatever. And it's so interesting to talk to someone who's like helped shape that and been like, yeah, there is more metro now. Like that's because we voted in this way, because we supported people in this way. Like that's what happens. We don't have to stop it at wishing that something was a certain way. So thanks for like tying some of those threads. I'm grateful people like you are helping with a deep love of LA, or helping also shape what LA looks like. That's important for people to be like, this is a really special place, and to love it in a way where you've like done the research of understanding it, right? It feels like a more rooted love outside of being like, it's nice weather. Like you're like, no, this is city built, around resiliency and about people coming together to form community in unexpected ways and unexpected place.
It's where the quest for meaning will lead you.
And you said you found meaning? You found some answers to meaning. What's like one answer?
It's just people. I mean, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Each other.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a pretty good way to like end. Like you're like, by the way, I found the search for meaning and it's people. Well, thank you for being one of the people on this podcast. And thank you for listening. Heather, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights. And if you're watching, we would love for you to be part of this conversation. We say this every show, but email us. You can email us at High Energy Podcast. That's like HI, like hello, High Energy Podcast at SoCalRen.org. Also, you mentioned a bunch of really fun things. Something we love doing is that the resources that Heather mentioned will be available. That includes books. That includes these books. If you are driving and listening, I held up a book. But that includes the books that she talked about and all the other fun resources. And then make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, share with your friends and family, your pets, share with your rescue dog. Your rescue dog would love this. We've got so many awesome guests in the future, so we hope to see you soon. Thank you for tuning in. I think together, this is part of what we want to do. You like hit it so beautifully. It's like together, groups of people who care about a place, who care about Southern California, can really come together and like create a better world, a better vision of the world that we're living in today. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.